And so, hello there, and welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. And in these podcasts, I talk all things movies and TV and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing The Flash. But before I do that, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, that if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello there to my viewers, but heck, you just don't have enough time wherever you may be to watch the full podcast on YouTube, then you can also listen to the podcast on Spotify at Night of the Movies on that platform. And if you are already listening on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners, then you can also check the podcast out visually on my YouTube channel at Night of the Movies on that platform as well. Likewise, wherever you may be watching or listening to the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast, of course, and also leave me some feedback on things to improve on. You know, there's always things to improve on these podcasts, and give me some suggestions of topics you want to talk about in future podcasts as well. I'd love to get some suggestions. But anyway, just before I get into my thoughts and feelings on The Flash, I also want to say this. You may have noticed in my voice today that I am quite bummed up, and that is because I still have hay fever. I spoke about this in my podcast yesterday, or my podcast a couple of days ago whenever this podcast comes out. My podcast on Across the Spider-Verse, I spoke about it a bit then, how I have hay fever quite badly, and I still do. I'm currently recording this podcast at 20 to 4 today, and that's because I was planning to record it this morning, but I've just been sneezing all day so far, and my eyes have been really bad as well. And so I have hay fever quite bad, and I might not be my best today because of that. And also, I might not be my best because it's so hot right now. I am boiling. Like, it is so hot outside, and I'm in the hottest room in the house, and I am just sizzling right now. And I do not think the best when it's hot. I don't think straight when I'm in very warm places. It's just the way things are. So I do apologise if this podcast isn't the best, because I've got hay fever right now and I feel a bit under the weather, and also it's absolutely boiling as I'm recording this podcast. But apart from that, everything in this podcast should turn out perfectly. So let's get into my thoughts and feelings on The Flash. My review of The Flash. So this is the newest DC superhero movie. This since Shazam 2. You know, it's part of the DCEU, which began in 2013. You know, 10 years ago now, with Man of Steel, and they continued with Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, continued again to Justice League, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984, Black Adam, and most recently Shazam 2. And this is the newest installment in the DCEU, and it is directed by Andy Muschietti, who previously directed the latest two It movies. The first of them I really enjoy, you know, It, which came out in 2017, I thought was a great movie. It Chapter 2, which came out in 2019, though, I was not a big fan of. It had some interesting ideas in there, but it didn't totally work for me, and it felt way too long. Honestly, a horror movie at 3 hours, I think, is stretching it. But Andy Muschietti has proven in the past that he is a good director, and this is his first time doing a superhero movie. And there's been a lot of hype surrounding this film as well, mainly because Michael Keaton's Batman is returning. This is the first time Michael Keaton is playing Batman again since 1992, I think, when he played Batman in Batman Returns, you know, which is a great movie. I actually prefer Batman Returns over the first Batman movie that Michael Keaton did, which was Batman 1989, which I was not really a big fan of because it doesn't feel like a Batman movie. It feels like a Tim Burton film. And don't get me wrong, I like a good Tim Burton film. I really do. Big Fish is one of my favourite films of all time. But I don't want to watch a Tim Burton movie, I want to watch a Batman movie. You know what I mean? Like, I want to watch a Batman movie that has some bite to it, has some grit to it, and that's what you get the Dark Knight trilogy, and that's what you get with the Batman, which came out last year, which is why the Batman was one of my favourite films of last year. But then you watch Batman 1989, and it's just silly, and it's got some good aspects to it, particularly the Danny Elfman musical score. You got Michael Keaton as Batman in the film, he's great, and Jack Nicholson's the Joker, he's also good to watch, although not my favourite Jack Nicholson performance by a long shot, but still, you know, it's got a lot of good aspects. That first Batman film directed by Tim Burton, but ultimately, I don't think it's that good. I don't think it's that bad either, it's just not really for me. But then Batman Returns, which is a sequel to that, is really good in my opinion, because it embraces its silliness. You know, Batman 1989 is a silly film, don't get me wrong, it's a very silly film. But Batman Returns is even sillier, but it embraces all that, and that's what I love about the film. And also, you have Danny DeVito as a Penguin in Batman Returns, and Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. You also have Christopher Walken in that film. It's such a great cast. I was about to say great cast, and that doesn't make any sense. Great cast, and they all do a great job. And I think Batman Returns is a great movie. And so I was really looking forward to seeing Michael Keaton return as Batman as well. You know, I brought into all that hype because it's Michael Keaton as Batman, and although he's not my favourite Batman would probably still be Christian Bale, he's still a really good Batman. And also, there's been all these rumours about like cameos that could be in the film, and we also have the returning of Ezra Miller as the Flash. The last time he properly played the Flash was in Justice League. You know, which version you want to count doesn't really matter because they were both filmed at the same time. You know, we want to count the theatrical cut of Justice League, which came out in 2017, or the Snyder cut, which came out 2 years ago now. You know, it doesn't matter which cut you choose. He hasn't played the Flash. They were both shot at the same time. You know, really around the same time anyway. And so we haven't had Ezra Miller as a Flash for quite a while. And now they are back in this movie playing the character, and there's been quite a lot of hypes around that. Also some controversy, which I'm not going to talk about, but I'm not saying I agree with that kind of speak. I'm not saying I agree with what Ezra Miller did. I don't. I'm just going to say this now. I do not agree with what Ezra Miller did over the past couple of years. But at the same time, though, this film was shot before he did all those really bad things. I'm not going to get into details there. So what I'm really saying, though, is I don't really care about all the Ezra Miller antiques in relation to this film. Although, if Ezra Miller returns as the Flash in future movies, I don't know how I feel about that. But for now, you know, I'm not too bothered about their actions in regard to this film. But that's just me. But also, there's been some hype surrounding this film because of the addition of the new Supergirl, played by, let's see if we can get a name correct here, Sasha Cal. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I apologise if I'm not. But also, there's been a lot of hype surrounding this film as well, because loads of famous people who work in the film industry have all said this film is great and said it's one of the best comic book movies of all time. Like James Gunn, the director of all three Guardians of the Galaxy movies and The Suicide Squad and various other films, who is now the head of DC. So you don't have to take his opinion with a bit of, you know, a huge grain of salt, actually. Not a bit of a grain of salt, a huge grain of salt, because he's now the head of DC. But he came out and said that this movie was incredible and one of the best comic book movies of all time. And also, though, Tom Cruise, who doesn't really talk about comic book movies, but talks about his love of movies quite a lot, he reportedly really loved the film and rang up Andy Muschietti, the director of the movie, after seeing it, talking about how much he loved it. You also had the head of Warner Brothers, the CEO of Warner Brothers, again, take it with a grain of salt, because Warner Brothers are the production company behind this movie, but he came out and said that this is one of the best comic book movies of all time. You had Henry Cavill talking about how much he loved it, Ben Affleck talking about how much he loved it, and Ben Affleck is, of course, reprising his role as Batman one last time in this film. Well, they say one last time. We'll wait and see about that. I do have a hunch that he'll return in the future, but that's all for speculation. As far as we know, this is his last time returning as Batman for now. But we've had all these famous people, James Gunn, Ben Affleck, Tom Cruise, and also you had the head of Warner Brothers, you've had Henry Cavill, you've had all these famous people say this movie is great, and I was so excited to watch it. I really was, because I'm a big fan of DC. I really want to see Michael Keaton as Batman back in action. I want to see all the cameos, I want to see what the fuss is about. I wanted to see this great movie, and yesterday I went to the cinema to see it, and honestly, I found this movie to be really disappointing. It's got so much wasted potential, and it's not as good as it should be. It feels like it's gone through multiple edits, and the film was finished like 2 years ago, so there's no surprise about that, because there's so many moments where I was thinking, is Michael Keaton's Batman meant to be in this film more? Because I remember about 3 years ago when I was shooting this movie, maybe even longer than that actually, maybe even be 4 years ago, there were set photos of Michael Keaton shooting, you know, the film as Bruce Wayne, dressed as Bruce Wayne in London somewhere. I'm not sure if it was London, but it was in the UK. And that scene wasn't in the film. And so I was sitting there wondering, is Michael Keaton's Batman meant to be in this more? And it feels like there's certain sections of the film which are weirdly edited, which feel like they've had a lot of studio interference because the film has been shelved for so long, because of all the Ezra Miller stuff, and because of the pandemic, and because of all the DC stuff going on right now as well. It just feels like I would really have enjoyed maybe the first theatrical cut of this film, and it feels right now that we're on perhaps the 20th theatrical cut on this film, which I'm not too happy about. It feels like there are large sections which have been edited in certain ways, and also there's one cameo in particular, and I'm not going to give away who in case people haven't seen the film yet, but there's one cameo in particular which looked like it was done in a reshoot, and badly. I was sitting there going, okay, this clearly wasn't shot on location and it's clearly done in a reshoot and it is not working whatsoever. You'll probably know what cameo I'm talking about once you watch the film. I don't want to give away which cameo that is, but I don't think it worked. And on the topic of cameos, they didn't really work either. All the cameos in this film are fine. I don't got nothing against them, but, you know, they show up and you're like, oh, it's that person, yay! And then 30 seconds later, you're like, but why were they there? Oh. What was the point of having them there? I'm not really sure other than to go, oh, look who it is. Ooh. That's literally how I felt, though. I was like, oh, it's that person. 30 seconds later, why were they there? You know, I didn't understand the point of the cameos in this film. And also, it feels very comic booky. And what I mean by that, it feels like if you're a real comic book geek, and I'm not, but if you are a really comic book geek, you know, if you're a big comic book fan, you're really going to love this movie. Like, it's a twist that happens in the finale of this film, the final act, and I didn't get it. I didn't get who that character was meant to be, and they didn't really explain it well, and it's another multiverse film. We've had multiverse so many times in previous movies before. Heck, I viewed a multiverse movie yesterday with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, but the thing is, though, multiverse in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is dealt with in a really fun and enjoyable fashion. Multiverse in The Flash just becomes more and more unengaging as the film goes on. Like, the film started, and I was quite engaged in what was going on. I was really enjoying it. There was this big, over-the-top action sequence that felt very much like it was just having fun with itself, though. I liked some of the ideas presented at the start of the film, but then, as this film progresses, it becomes more and more about multiverse, and that really started to feel unengaging to the point that when you get to the final big battle at the end of the movie, I was sat there going, really? I don't care about any of this now, and I wish I did, you know. I don't really care what the Flash is doing. I hate to say it, but I don't really care what Batman is doing. I don't really care what Superman is doing. Oh, cool, Michael Shannon's in this film as General Zod. Pardon me there. Michael Shannon's in this film as General Zod, but why? I don't know. Because they could, you know. It's just... the film started off well, which is why it has so much wasted potential. It started off with some really good ideas. This whole idea of trying to live in a world where both of your parents are still around, you know, and as we learn in the film, and this has been revealed in the trailers, you know, Barry Allen, aka The Flash, he wants to go to a world where his mom is still alive. And that idea is explored very well in the film. But it feels like to forget about it when they go, oh, by the way, this is a multiverse film, and we can have cameos, and we can do all these things with multiverse, and it's silly, and it becomes very comic booky, and it relies way too much on fan service. And what I mean by that is compensating for lack of good storytelling by showing fan elements in the film. So what you have in this movie is in the second act, you see Michael Keaton's Batman again. You meet Michael Keaton and he's back as Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. And when you meet him again, you get to see the Batcave from Batman 1989 and Batman Returns, and you also get to see, you know, Michael Keaton's Batmobile, you also get to see his Batwing and all these different cool stuff. But a lot of it just felt like they were showing off, and it wasn't really too important to the plot. Like, they were going, oh, guys, you know, audiences, remember the Batcave? Remember Michael Keaton's Batcave? Remember Michael Keaton's Batmobile? Remember Michael Keaton's Batwing? Remember all that stuff? Well, it's back here. Ooh, like this movie. That's what it felt like. And don't be wrong, fan service happens in films all the time, and I've spoken about this in previous reviews, how I don't really mind fan service if it's done well. But for me, the fan service wasn't done well in this film because I'm not a huge fan of the Tim Burton Batman movies. Batman Returns, yes, I really like, but it's not one of those films where, you know, I have a really nostalgic view on it, you know what I mean? I watched that film, I think, for the first time about 5 years ago, so I don't have a huge love of Batman Returns, so I'm watching this going, oh yeah, that's Michael Keaton's Batmobile. Cool. Why is this necessary to the plot? Oh wait, it isn't really. They're just showing it because they can. And also, Michael Shannon's General Zod returns, and that's fine. And I understand why it's there. A lot of Zack Snyder fans, people who are fans of Man of Steel, would really love that cameo because he was the villain in Man of Steel. But I was sat there going, okay, but how is this necessary to the plot? I didn't really get why he was in there. And honestly, Michael Shannon looked quite bored, and I didn't really understand what he was saying. And his performance as General Zod was not compelling, in my opinion. It wasn't compelling in Man of Steel, and it still isn't now. And, there is a lot to admire of this film, though. It isn't bad. That's the thing, though. It's just fine. The movie is fine. But there is a lot to admire. There's a lot that I didn't like about the film, but there's a lot I did like about the movie. It's directed by Andy Muschietti, as we've already spoken about. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the director's name correctly there, and I do apologise if I'm not. But it's directed by Andy Muschietti, who, like I've already mentioned, directed the It movies, the first of which came out in 2017, and the second of which came out in 2019. And those are horror movies. And you can clearly see that Andy Muschietti is incorporating his horror roots into this movie. There's a lot of sequences which have that horror feel, which have a horror feel to them. And also, I love how Andy Muschietti makes all the Michael Keaton Batman stuff, or the Batcave and everything like that, feel very Tim Burton. And also, I like how he makes the General Zod stuff feel very Zack Snyder, because those are the directors which brought those characters to life. But at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that I didn't think those parts of the stories were too engaging, but I liked the way it was shot. I also really liked the musical score by, and I'm going to mispronounce his name incorrectly, but I think it's like Benjamin Wallsfish, who also did the musical score for the first Shazam, and I think he did a very good job with the musical score for the first Shazam. That's a very underrated score in my opinion. And he does a good job with the score in this movie, quoting a lot from Danny Elfman's scores for, the Tim Burton Batman movies, and, he does a great job scoring this film, but at the same time, though, it's not got many memorable themes. Like, I do think it's a good score, just not a great score. And also, the film has so many good ideas. I really want to touch them, but I'm not going to spoil it, so I'm not going to. But it's got some really good ideas that deal with what would happen if you want to change things in this timeline, how to affect this timeline, and it's done quite well, but then you feel like it's about to touch onto greatness, and then it just doesn't. It becomes wasted potential, and it's so annoying this to say, because I went into the cinema yesterday really wanting to love this film. I was so excited to see it. I was like, this is going to be a proper comic book movie now. It's going to be fun, exciting, and just escapist entertainment to the highest form. You know what I mean? And it wasn't. It wasn't for me. It was just another comic movie in the end that, it felt very similar to other comic movies we've had recently, which haven't really been that good. And also, one other thing which I didn't really like about this film was that it didn't capture the personality of Flash. Like, don't be wrong, this is very much a Flash movie. He is at the centre of the film. It's not a Batman movie. It's not a Supergirl film. It's a Flash movie. He is at the centre. That character is at the centre of this movie. But at the same time, though, it doesn't capture the energy of the Flash. Like, the Flash, from what I've gathered, again, I've never read a comic book in my life, I can't even speak, but from what I've gathered from watching him in other movies, he's meant to be the fastest man alive, and I didn't feel that with the energy in this film. The pacing feels a bit slow at times, and I didn't feel like it was really capturing that essence of the fastest man alive in the same, like Birds of Prey did. Birds of Prey is a film that I don't love. I think it's good, but I don't love it. But one thing I really like about Birds of Prey is how it captures the character of Harley Quinn in its editing and its storytelling. That's on your face, that's quite messy, and that's, a bit all over the place, but it works because it's capturing the energy of Harley Quinn in her movie. Birds of Prey is essentially Harley Quinn's film, and you really feel that, but you don't feel that so much with The Flash. If someone told me that this was a Batman movie and they just edited it a bit differently, I would believe them. It's not edited to make it feel like The Flash. I don't know if you understand what I mean there, because in then I'm just talking to a camera right now. I'm not talking to anyone in this room. But, I want it to feel more like a Flash movie. I mean, he is that character. The Flash character is the centre of the movie. He is the main character of the film. Even though they got all this other stuff going on, even though they got loads of other characters in the movie, he is the centre of this film. Or the Flash character is at the centre of the movie. But I just wish the film was felt more like a Flash movie, you know what I mean? I wish it had more energy and more spark like the character the Flash does, and like Ezra Miller's performance does. Ezra Miller gives a brilliant performance as the Flash. You know, they are very good in the film, and they do a good job playing two characters as well. You know, there's not a spoiler to say here, but there's two versions that you see of the Flash in the film. Well, kind of actually. There's two versions of Barry Allen, aka the Flash, you know, he becomes the Flash. There's two versions you see of that character in the movie, and they do a great job. Ezra Miller does a really great job playing those two characters and adding something different to the other version of Barry that you meet as the film progresses. And also, what's her name? Sasha Calle, I think that's how I pronounce her name. Again, apologies if I'm incorrect. She's great as Supergirl. Would like to see more of her. And Michael Keaton he seems like he's having a lot of fun as Batman, you know, coming back as Batman, and I would like to see more of him. I mean, I understand it's not Batman 3, it's not the sequel to Batman Returns in the end, but still, I would have liked to see more of Michael Keaton's Batman, and part of me wonders whether there is a cut out there of this movie that has more of Michael Keaton's Batman. I mean, I don't know, and the chances are I'll never know for certain, but, you know, I would like to see more of him. And the film does have a lot of great aspects to it. It does. It's shot well, and it's got a good musical score. There's some, you know, interesting moments in the film, some quite engaging moments earlier on. It does a good job exploring Barry Allen, aka the Flash, and his relationship with his parents. It also has a lot of fun moments. Michael Keaton's Batman, a lot of, you know, kind of enjoyable action sequences. Supergirl is good, although misused in my opinion. And it's not bad. That's the thing though. I wouldn't say it's that bad, but I just wouldn't say it's that good. And I'm surprised so many people have said so many great things about this movie, so many famous people. Like, I'm really surprised that James Gunn has come out and said it's the best comic movie of all time. And I know that he's now the head of DC Studios, so that's why he might have said that. But he hasn't said that about Aquaman 2, which is coming out this Christmas, and he hasn't said that about Blue Beetle, which is coming out in August. And he didn't say about Shazam 2 as well. He said it about this movie. And honestly, I had more from Shazam 2 than this film. You know, and the funny thing is, James Gunn has come out and said that this is one of the best comic movies of all time. I actually think one of his comic movies, Guardians of the Galaxy 1, is the best comic movie of all time. That is my favourite comic book movie because I just think it's perfect what a comic movie should be. Whilst this movie, I know I said it before, but I'll say it again, it starts off well, but then it just becomes so comic booky, and it becomes very generic for a comic book movie, and all the stuff in multiverse I just lost interest in, and yeah, it really disappointed me in the end. And it's got so much waste potential, and it's, you know, it should be great. It should be great, that's the annoying thing. I really wanted to love this movie, but I just felt tired of it by the third act. This is one of my most anticipated films of the year as well. You know, I was looking forward to this film for a very long time, and unfortunately, it didn't deliver for me. But if you love it, that's great. I'm really happy for it. In fact, I'm really jealous because I really, really wanted to. But although it's got some enjoyable moments and some interesting ideas, and although it sets up a lot of potential in its first act, it wastes all that potential, in my opinion, as the film goes on and all the multiverse stuff becomes more prevalent, you know, becomes more at the centre of this film, and the cameos didn't feel earned, and everything just felt fine. Like, it didn't take a huge hating to the film like I did with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But I also didn't take a huge liking to the film like I did with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And I really wanted to so badly. But, yeah, that's just me. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that The Flash, I'm going to say it's a 5 out of 10. this is such a disappointing rating to give this movie because, I was all for just a big, epic comic book movie, but that's not what this film is. And one thing I've even mentioned, is that, to be honest, it is a big, epic comic book movie, actually, and that's why I dislike it quite a bit in its third act, because, I'm kind of going back myself there, but it's the truth. In its third act, it becomes quite epic. It becomes a big CGI fest. And the problem is, there's all these emotional moments, these emotional, scenes in the third act of the film, but they don't hit right because you've had all these big CGI action set pieces, which I didn't think worked. I didn't think they were needed, and yet the film is trying to make you feel emotions, and yet the emotional beats aren't working because I just sat through another big CGI battle, which just doesn't work for me. I've spoken about this many times on this channel. I do not like CGI movies. It just really annoys me after a while. Too much CGI, actually. I don't mind if you use CGI a little bit, if it's necessary, because obviously you're going to need CGI in most superhero movies. The only superhero movie I can think where the CGI isn't that evident is The Batman. I remember watching The Batman for the first time last year, and then coming out of cinema and learning that there was visual effects used in that movie. I didn't even know that, but I can understand with most superhero movies, especially in this instance, when you have characters like The Flash, when you have characters like Batman in a film, you're probably going to use CGI, and especially with Supergirl and General Zod as well. But the CGI didn't look great, to be honest, now the more I think about it. Some of the CGI looked like it was 2008 PC game video graphics, and also it really took me out of the film, and it made me go, when you got to those emotional moments, I was like, focus more on this. Why were you focusing more on this, and why were you focusing more on the big CGI action set pieces? But then I realised that it's just another generic comic movie in the end. That's what it felt like for me, another generic comic book movie, and I really wish it focused more on the emotional moments, the human aspects of the movie, the family relationship, between Barry and his mother and his father, and it does focus on that, but not enough. I've been rambling on about the movie way too much, but I've been rambling on about it because, first of all, I'm boiling and hot, I'm not even thinking straight, also because I'm under the weather because of hay fever, and because I'm annoyed that this film didn't work. I'm annoyed that this film didn't work for me. It's not bad, that's the annoying thing, but it could have been great. It could have been so much better. And it has so much potential in there, but it just wasted all that potential. Wasted all that potential, in my opinion. It became this flimsy comic book film, and it annoyed me that I didn't like it. I was eating Nando's after, and I was talking to my mate who had just watched it with him. I was like, why wasn't that better? I don't know. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. If you like the movie, that's great. I'm really, really happy for you. But yeah, you can tell I'm disappointed by it. I'm annoyed that I don't like it. And I'm annoyed in the direction that it took as well. All superhero movies in the future need to move away from multiverse. Unless you're the Spider-Verse films. Those films make it work. All live-action superhero movies, though, do not make multiverse work, and I become really unengaged when multiverse begins being mentioned, and Flash with further evidence of that. And so, all in all, as I've already mentioned, The Flash is a movie with so much waste potential and ends up becoming another flimsy superhero movie. And there you go, that's just my opinion on it. And like I've already said, I'm going to say that The Flash is a 5 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that is it for the podcast today. Hope you enjoy this podcast. I don't know how it's gone because I'm sweating buckets right now. I think you can tell by that if you're watching this on YouTube. I'm sweating buckets because I'm so hot. I hate the summer so much. I know everybody loves the summer, but it's just, it doesn't gel with me. I really don't like warm weather whatsoever. And so doing these reviews and getting quite worked up, It's not the best because I'm just, before I'm sweating buckets, but hopefully you guys watching, anyone watching it, enjoyed this review. And if you did, please let me know your thoughts on The Flash in the comment section below, and also let me know your thoughts on my review of The Flash as well. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast, and also look forward to many more podcasts coming very soon on this channel. Thank you as always for watching, and I suppose that's it. So I'll see you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye.